See, I'm always ready. Come on now. It's these other motherfuckers that ain't ready. I'm telling you. You guys are about to see. By the end of this semester, you're about to see shit really pop off. So, can you pull up YouTube on one of these screens for me? Maybe Dan, you could do that. Anybody heard any news about Public Enemy recently? What's your name? Tell me your name.
Gus.
Gus. What'd you hear?
They split. I mean, one member left.
Okay. Any do you know who and under what circumstances?
I forgot, but it was because of Bernie. They most of them like Bernie.
Bernie's splitting up Public Enemy.
Yeah.
Now what am I gonna do? Because I'm supposed to, I don't want to talk shit about Bernie, but Public Enemy is my group. So, okay, what else do you guys know about it? Aside from what Gus said, anybody know who got kicked out of the group? 70 units. What's your name?
Will. I could be wrong, but Flava Flav.
Flav is out! Flava Flav, the flavor of all flavors, is no longer the flavor of the month. As far as Public Enemy is concerned. Do you know why?
I saw it was a similar reason because
so it's got
the
something to
Bernie
do.
dispute, yeah.
Sorry?
Like the dispute over Bernie Sanders, the support over him.
Yeah. What about it?
Do
you know who was supporting Bernie and who wasn't?
I think it was that Flava Flav didn't support Bernie Sanders.
That's what I heard.
And then Chuck B and I forget who else did.
Yeah, Chuck D. Yeah, Chuck D is supporting Bernie. Did anybody see the post on Instagram about Chuck D supporting Bernie? Who else had their hand up? Oh, back here. Did you guys see the flyer? You pass the mic over.
I mean,
Dan, you're pulling up YouTube? Yeah. Cool, thanks.
I just saw that Flava Flav was getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I think it was because,
And Flava's your favorite, right?
Yeah.
Flavor of Love?
I sat next to his band on a plane one time.
His band?
Well, not band, group on a plane one time. But anyways, so,
That's pretty cool.
anyways.
Was it your private jet?
No, it wasn't.
Are you one of the 1%ers in the class? We have a few.
No.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, yeah, I saw that, I think they were using, Public Enemy as, I don't know, they used a title for the group, and I think the title kind of, excluded Flava Flav. He got mad. I'm not entirely sure about the whole story.
Yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure either. It's just everybody calling me and sending me messages and stuff. I haven't bothered, actually looking at the facts. Who needs the facts? When you have gossip and rumors. So, but I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're saying is that Chuck D used the name Public Enemy to, on a flyer in support of a rally for Bernie Sanders, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Flav was objecting, saying, well, I never okayed this, and by the way, I'm not necessarily a supporter of Bernie. Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have any other details? Thanks. What's your name?
My name is John.
John. Anybody else? Yeah, oh.
I actually just found something out on Chuck D's Instagram.
Yeah.
So,
Let's find out.
yeah, it says Public Enemy did not part waves with Flavor Flav over.
Wait, hold on one second. Can you pull this up? Instagram. You could mute your screen for 1 second. Do you have an Instagram account?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, I think I'll follow it.
Okay. No, you can just the one screen. Leave the other screen up. Go ahead.
All right, but basically,
let's go to Chuck D's Instagram. That's what we're looking for.
Basically, it says Public Enemy did not part ways with him over his political views.
Okay, everybody pay attention. It's important.
He was placed on suspension since 2016 when he was MIA from the Harry Belafonte benefit in Atlanta, Georgia.
Damn, son, he didn't show up for Harry Belafonte. That's not a good look. And now he's trying to make it be about Bernie when it's really about Harry? That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So since May what?
Well, just since 2016.
Is this the most recent, or you scroll down a
That's
bit?
the most recent, the one like right up there.
Dan, can you click on that one there? The letter? Yeah. Ooh, nice. Well done. We have the technology, ladies and gentlemen. Public Enemy did not part ways. Okay. Go ahead, read it.
Yeah, and he had previously missed like numerous live gigs.
Can you just read it for everybody?
Oh, yeah. So Flavor Flav has been on suspension since 2016 when he was MIA from the Harry Belafonte benefit in Atlanta, Georgia. That was the last straw for the group. He had previously missed numerous live gigs from Glastonbury to Canada, album recording sessions, and photo shoots. He always chose to party over work. Public Enemy Radio tour.
What a jab, eh?
Yeah.
Always chose. He didn't even say since 2016. Now he made it like, you're never supposed to do that in relationships, right? Don't say, you always do this. You say, well, on these occasions, on numerous occasions. Yeah, go on.
Public Enemy Radio toured Europe and co-headlined with the Wu-Tang Clan in May 2019 without Flavor. They have also done numerous benefit shows without Flavor.
Funny how he says they as opposed to we. That's an interesting rhetorical strategy. Chuck is a slick guy, by the way. You don't fuck with Chuck. Okay, go on.
While Public Enemy Radio was moving forward, Flavor Flav was starring on the reality show Growing Up Hip Hop New York, where an episode featured his children discussing an intervention and putting him into rehab.
Damn. That's called casting aspersions. Let me subtly point out that Flav is a crackhead. Subtly. Okay, go on.
It's time to move on, and everyone wishes Flavor well, and then the signatures.
Oh, and it's not, and it isn't just Chuck. Look at that. It is everybody. Everybody. Dan, can you scroll a little so we can see who all is there? It's DJ Lord, Pop Diesel, James Baum, and Jahi. So, and then these years are the years that these different members joined the group. So Chuck D formed the group in 1985. And he brought Flavor into the group in that year. Yeah. Pass the mic back behind you. And then you have these other, so James Baum has been a member of the S1W since '86. DJ Lord became the new DJ for Public Enemy when the original DJ Terminator X left, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah, I just saw here that Flavor Flav sued Chuck D in 2017 for not paying his fair share of royalties, and they said they agreed on a split, and he's like, you're just a hype man, I write the music. So as an artist...
Wait, can be clearer? You guys started to get...
Oh yeah, I'm just saying as an artist, personally, there's two sides to every story.
Back up. Everybody needs to understand...
Okay, he sued him because he said he didn't give him the fair cut of their royalties from performances and that they had agreed to a split. But then Chuck D said, I believe he wrote most of it, or basically you're just a hype man and you're not deserving of it. So I guess what I'm saying is it goes a little further back than this.
Right.
Which I didn't know.
Did everybody follow what he said? So, tell me your name again. James?
Jeffrey James.
Jeffrey James. Wild Cowboy. Jeffrey James said, Jeffrey James. Not to be confused with Jesse James.
Correct.
Because he's quick with the gun, but you got the guitar.
Correct.
It's not the other way around. Okay, just making sure. So, quick on the draw with the 6th string. But man, he's also sick when he sings. All right. So, what you're saying is that Flavor Flav sued Chuck D. Did he sue Public Enemy or sue Chuck D? In 27, Flavor Flav sued Chuck D or Public Enemy. You're checking.
I believe it says Chuck D because a suit against Chuck D was dismissed in 2019.
Oh, it's dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? And then in 2020, Flavor Flav got dismissed.
True. I think it's weak to bring his kids in rehab into it too. Like he could have taken the high road and like not. He could have left out that last sentence.
Yeah, it seemed a little personal, right?
Yeah, it's like or rehab, but then you bring his children into it. It's like, come on, man. Anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Let's see how he said it. I mean, he didn't talk shit about his kids, right? Where an
No,
episode
no, no,
featured
no,
his
he didn't.
children discussing an intervention and putting him into rehab. So he's kind of like mobilized, being like, yo, even your kids are on my side, bro. Not only everybody in the group signed the letter, your kids may as well sign the letter. All right. Okay, so here's the chronology. The chronology is from what we've discussed together. I figured this out with you guys. So in 2016, Chuck suspended, it seems to say that Chuck suspended Flavor Flav in 2016.
Correct.
In 2017, Flavor Flav sued Chuck D for royalties. So they didn't sue him until a year after he remains in suspension. And then the lawsuit again goes on for 2 years and is dismissed in 2019. And now which happens first here? And then in 2020, Chuck D and Public Enemy, or Chuck D leads Public Enemy, to do a rally for Bernie Sanders, and then Flav objects, and then Flav goes from being suspended to being kicked out. Is that the way? The only thing I'm unsure about is, yeah, I think that's what it is. I was wondering if, like, did Flav get kicked out before and is now bringing up this thing, and that's why we're all hearing about it now, because he's criticizing the Bernie Sanders thing? But I don't think so. I think Public Enemy did not part ways with Flav over his political views.
Yes.
Oh, no, but Chuck is saying Flav's been on his way out for a long time. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, Flav's lawyers sent Bernie Sanders a cease and desist. Like, you can't use Public Enemy Radio, which was what the pseudonym they were performing under at the convention in L.A., without my permission.
Okay.
And then Chuck D is just like, wait a second, you're not even a part of this anymore.
Got it. So Flav had already lost this lawsuit against Chuck.
Correct.
And then his lawyers thought it'd be a slick move to email Bernie Sanders' campaign and say you can't use Public Enemy. All right. What do you guys think? Anybody? Obviously, I'm biased in favor of Chuck D. Okay. I have full disclosure. Chuck D wrote one of my letters of recommendation to go to grad school. So I have a dog in the fight, so to speak. Now I've hang out with Flavor Flav as well as his band. Flavor Flav has played drums for me. He's a great musician. But you know, I'm on Chuck's side. But you guys who are more objective, anybody got a who among you guys feel like Flavor Flav? Who wants to defend Flavor? Good job, Carly. Like, from what you guys see here, who has some sympathy for Flavor Flav?
Okay, so not exactly defending him, but defending him-ish. If they were seeing these problems before, like him partying and not going to work, maybe they should have tried to help him get into rehab sooner rather than forcing his kids to go through that, because that had to be really hard on his kids. So, like, maybe they should take a look at themselves and realize maybe we should have been a better friend to him. I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And, like, here's the thing. So I guarantee you they tried. But that doesn't matter. Like, but obviously these are big men, right, who have a lot of clout, a lot of weight, a lot of influence. So, you know, probably if you ask them that question, they'd be like, yo, we tried, we do what we could. We're not his family.
Right.
You know, so it's like throw the moral obligation on his kids. But come on. I totally think it's a really, really good criticism. Anybody else? Do you think that even if Chuck is, like, legally in the right, do you think that this was, do you think, given what we have talked about, given what we know, you know, do you think that this line about his children was like going too far? Like, so obviously this is like an open letter to the public. So this is Chuck like explaining to you guys, to everybody who's like reading these articles and saying, because the spin is Flavor Flav has gotten kicked out of Public Enemy because he doesn't endorse Bernie Sanders, and he has, you know, some say he should have 50% say, or some say in whether or not Public Enemy, the group, the name, endorses a political candidate or not, right? So this is Chuck responding and saying, that's not what this is about. So in that context, do you feel like it's just, whether morally or, I mean, legally, obviously, whatever, Chuck is in the right, or he's winning. But what about morally? What about in terms of justice? Like, do you think this is the appropriate way to respond? Would you respond this way if you were in his position? Why or why not? So I take that point, Carly, that you made, but that's more of a criticism of like, well, they should have done that years ago. In terms of now, Chuck has a responsibility, let's say, to the public to clear things up. So would it have been just effective? Would it have been more effective? Would it have been better not to mention his kids? Ashton. Pass him like that. Come on, guys. You gotta like. I should just be able to throw the mic to you, catch it, throw it back to her. That's teamwork.
I don't necessarily think the part about his children needs to be in there. Like when you read the letter, it flows pretty well, and even just him not holding up his commitments with the group and benefits is enough. And then it's kind of just thrown in as last line to like really just drive home like issues that don't necessarily line up.
Yeah. There's not enough context given there to say, why does that matter? I mean, well, I guess you could tie it in with the partying. Like he's partying, and then the implication is, you know, using drugs. But yeah, and even if he's going to mention rehab, right, he could say, on this show, it shows you being taken into rehab. Yeah. He could still make the rehab comment if he thought it was necessary without mentioning his kids. Yeah.
I just have a question. How would it get twisted into the Bernie Sanders thing if that wasn't the reason? Like, how did that get interpreted that way?
That's a good question. Does anybody have, like, what does Flavor Flav's Instagram say? Like, if we're gonna try to look at both sides, let's see what Flav's lawyers posted, or what Flav posted. Anybody, let me know if you find it. We'll throw it on the screen.
So what I see on Instagram is that it says that Flav accused the Sanders campaign of.
Is this what? Are you on Flavors?
No, this is just on like a news.
Okay.
Yeah, but it just says that Flav accused the Sanders campaign of the unauthorized use of Flavor Flav's likeness, image, and trademark clock in promotional material circulated by the Sanders campaign.
Okay, now that seems a little bit more like he has some weight, because it says his what? His likeness and his trademark clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not that he said you can't use the name Public Enemy or the image Public Enemy, but he's saying the actual image of Flavor Flav. So that he probably seems valid that I have more of a claim to. So now this is why seeing the poster is relevant.
If you go on his Instagram, he has both.
Can you go on his Instagram?
He has a video addressing it.
What is the handle? Instagram handle?
It's Flavor Flav Official.
At Flavor Flav Official? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go there.
He went on a bit of a Twitter rant, which he posted, and then he posted the official statement from his lawyer.
Okay.
As well as a video.
Did he post the image of the poster?
No.
The flyer? Okay. So
the first two both pertain to it, yeah.
Were you talking about the video, or were you talking about the...
Both.
Okay, let's watch the video.
I laughed.
To be clear, Mr. Chuck DPE can use fake reality TV stories. What is he, he's quoting Donald Trump? Is that a subtle endorsement? I hope not.
And the
reason why I laughed is because it's something that can't be done. Chuck D doesn't own the group by himself. He just owns the name. He can't fire me. I'm not his employee. Never was his employee. Never will be his employee. I'm just his equal partner. It's not Public Enemy when Chuck D is by himself. It's Public Enemy when Chuck D and Flavor Flav comes together. The false accusation was Public Enemy will be performing for Bernie Sanders, and that wasn't true. It was only Chuck D and whoever he has performing for Bernie Sanders. You know what I'm saying? I haven't been on drugs in over 10 years. I've been clean. And I feel good to say that. No, it's about me sticking up for myself and not being bullied. Well, one thing that I can say is I love my partner, Chuck D. And I'm kind of worried about him right now. I laughed. And the reason why I laughed is because it's something that can't be done. Chuck D doesn't own the group by himself. He just owns the name. He can't fire me.
Is that a loop?
I'm not his.
Yeah, okay. All right, stop it. All right. Just let me reiterate in case you didn't hear. Didn't sue you on Friday. Yeah. We're going to be done with this in 1 minute. Let's see here. Are you kidding me right now? Mr. Chuck, are you kidding me right now? Bernie Sanders, you want to destroy something we built? Okay. Okay, this is Flav saying this to Chuck. Are you kidding me right now? Over Bernie Sanders, you want to destroy something we built 35 years? Over politics? Oh, there you go. That's what I was looking for. See? Proof that this is totally relevant to the class, not just because we have studied Public Enemy already. But here's the line, okay? Take a picture of that. Take a snapshot right there. Something we've built over 35 years, you, Chuck D, says Flavor Flav, you want to destroy it over politics. Oh, because I don't want to endorse a candidate. I'm very disappointed in you and your decision right now, Chuck. Let's only talk about that tweet. What definition of politics is necessary in order for that tweet to make sense? What understanding of the word politics? Have we looked at different understandings in this class? Yeah. Go ahead, shut it up. I lost the microphone. What happened to the mic? Oh. Did you say what you wanted to say? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. This guy knows. I'm not going to say nothing until I get the mic. What's your name?
Connor. I just the definition with in terms of like human relationships. So like the dynamics of power in human relations. So I think this applies because it's like like what it said was like the relationship, like what we've built over 35 years over politics. So it's like the relationship that they've built over 35 years, and then now is coming into politics.
So definitely this is one of the definitions that we want to use to analyze. Mm-hmm. So when he says, and so you're using this definition here to analyze this tweet, right? Or this cultural artifact, or this cultural object, or cultural entity, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a piece of culture, yep. Piece of social media, a piece of popular culture. It's not a song, it's not an essay, but it is a creative work, right? Now, would you say that this tweet in and of itself is political?
Not necessarily. I mean, it brings up politics. Mm-hmm. It talks about
right.
Bernie Sanders, but it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't think it's like necessarily like the tweet itself is political, but there's like aspects of politics within the tweet.
Okay. So when you say not necessarily, you're right. When you say not necessarily, the other part of that is not necessarily. It depends.
That's based off of my opinion. I mean, other people could have different.
Exactly. But your opinion is based, so you said it's not necessarily political. That means it could be political, or you're saying it could be interpreted as political. You're not interpreting it as political.
Exactly.
Got you. Now, what is, so listen carefully, everybody listen carefully to what I'm saying here. When you said not necessarily, which is accurate, what would make, not necessarily means it's not necessarily political. It could be interpreted as political depending, right? Or not necessarily, it depends. So then the question is, what does it depend on? And what I want you guys to realize here, I want you to be able to learn how to use these definitions I'm giving you and learn to see how different definitions matter, and we're going to use it here. So you have the definition that I gave, right? So, and this is my definition, the dynamics of power in human relations, as you read. So we can use that definition to analyze this. And my suggestion to you is that the answer to the question, is the tweet political or not, is you get a different answer depending on which definition you use. So thanks. So Connor, right? Yep. So Connor gave my definition. What was the other definition that we looked at in class? Anybody remember? Do you remember when we did the class, when we talked about it? What did we contrast my definition with? Nobody remembers? Did we Google it? Okay, if nobody remembers, maybe I am misremembering. Did we never have this discussion? What's going on here? Am I in the right room?
So I have a note from way back, sorry, and it says that politics is the debate between parties hoping to achieve power.
Bam.
And so I feel
like we had a whole discussion. Ashton, did you say something about this discussion? Like when we were debating like the meaning of politics? No, way back. Do you have a date?
January 23rd.
January 23rd. Everybody was here January 23rd? Okay, so what's your name?
Chelsea.
Okay, so Chelsea is drawing your attention to our conversation that we had on January 23rd. So on January 23rd, I gave you the definition, which Connor quoted, and we contrasted it with this other definition. Say it again.
Debate between parties hoping to achieve power.
Ooh, now that's really interesting. Debate between parties hoping to achieve power.
So I feel like if you're utilizing that definition, this tweet could be seen as political because it's essentially them trying to fight for the power of who's correct in a sense.
Who has the right, who has the power to decide what to do with the name public enemy.
And how they're like equal partners and not one is the boss of the other one.
Yeah, totally political, right?
Yeah.
But now, do you have a different definition there?
We have like the more traditional Google one. It says a set of activities associated with government decisions that apply to groups, organized control in community, and specific state. And then it's a manufactured word.
Okay, cool. So read that one more time, just like the first sentence. Don't worry about the manufactured part.
Set of activities associated with government, decisions that apply to groups, organized control in community or specific state.
Okay, so thanks. Chelsea, right? Yeah. Okay, so Connor, if you're using that definition, right, the mainstream definition, the Google definition, then your interpretation is totally valid. It's not political because the tweet is not political. They're talking about politics, right? Flav is talking about politics when he says, "What you want to destroy the group that we spent 35 years building over politics?" What does he mean? Because of a candidate? So he's using this mainstream definition. He's using this definition of politics as being about voting and politicians and government, right? The state version. That's the definition of politics that's being used by Flavor Flav. If that is the definition that you ascribe to, if that's how you think about politics, either consciously or subconsciously, then this makes perfect sense. However, if you think about politics, you guys have something to add?
Yeah. We just think we
disinfect the microphone now. But other than that, we don't have anything else. To
I guess you don't want me to hand you the microphone unless you have the disinfectant there.
Oh yeah. We're good. That's all we were talking about.
I don't get it. Did somebody? What happened with the mic? Should I be touching it?
No, we're just
Oh, I got it. Have you been to China? Have you guys read the whole Becky Blank says don't be mean to people who have been to China, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. Now, is that political? No. I'm going to resist. Okay, let's finish this thing. There were 3 definitions of politics that we just had here. All right? There's the traditional one, or the mainstream one. Candidates, government, politicians, voting. All right? That's the mainstream definition. According to that definition, this tweet is talking, as Connor said, this tweet is talking about politics. It, in and of itself, is not political. Clearly. Right? It's not like maybe. If that's your definition, if that's the definition you apply, the answer is no, it's not political. But if you're using the definition that, Connor, that you quoted, that I gave you, dynamics of power in human relations, then it is political. Or if you're using the other definition that Chelsea mentioned, which was, what was it? Parties struggling with... Say it again? Yeah. Debate between parties hoping to achieve power. So in this case, they are, the parties being Flavor Flav and Chuck D, they're debating over who has the power to decide how the name Public Enemy is used. Right? So, this is a in vivo. You guys know what in vivo means, right? There's a bunch of chemistry majors here. This is an in vivo illustration of of why it matters how you define things. Whether you see this as an injustice and how you read it politically all depends on how you are thinking about what constitutes politics and what you think is appropriate behavior, right? And these other discussions that we have about what's going too far and is this or that appropriate, here, what are we talking about in that case? We're talking about morality, right? We're talking about ethical standards. We're talking about what is the appropriate way for people to treat each other, for friends to treat each other. I hear a lot of whispering going on. You guys tell me what's going on. Now I don't hear a lot of whispering, but I don't hear anybody telling me what's going on. Yeah.
So, I understand that this is a response to the press release that Chuck D and Public Enemy made. So this came out after. I just think it would be interesting to be able to discuss the fact, like, I think this extends further than just this incident, obviously, but like him taking to Twitter.
You guys need to be paying attention to what this guy's saying. So I shouldn't be hearing other people talking. If you guys want to talk, put your hand up. I'll bring you the mic.
And whether there's professionalism within making incredibly emotional statements over social media at the tips, the fingertips, as opposed to like, if this happened 20 years ago, like how Flavor Flav would have been able to get his voice out, / like been able to make that statement. Perhaps even it would have been a more eloquent statement and like more, I'm not saying it's not eloquent or articulated in a good way, but I just think it's interesting how, especially in this day and age, especially when it comes to politics, like, and social media combined, it's just rife with anger and just like outside factors that aren't actually talking about the issue at hand, if that makes sense. Like what you're alluding to in the sense of like this definition of politics. Well, is this really politics?
Yeah.
No. It is, but it isn't. In the sense of like you're saying that it's the generalized like definition and accepted definition of what politics are.
Yeah.
But you're saying also like, is he talking about politics as a whole? Like, is he saying that the idea of politics is absolute bullshit to break up like one of the greatest hip hop duos of all time over, but really he's saying you're breaking it up because of a political ideal and specifically a candidate and specifically an agenda within that political system.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is that I wish it was acted out in a different way because I think social media tainted it and made it more emotional than it already is. I mean, because that's kind of what we were talking about with Chuck D, kind of like really coming at Flavor Flav with the whole rehab thing and his kids and putting that out there onto the most successful like website in this day and age, which is Instagram, and putting them on full blast so that everyone can see this. And then, I don't know, I just think it's a lot more emotional than it would have been had it been done a lot more professional. I don't know.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I want to know if you guys want to comment. I have comments, but I want to hear other people who we haven't heard from on this point. But let me reiterate what I think I heard you say. So you seem to say that your interpretation is that this is not about politics. Like, it's similar to Connor's understanding, is that the tweet ultimately is talking about politics, but it's not political in and of itself. I think you were saying that. Let me say a couple things what I thought, and then you clarify. So I think you were saying, yeah, it's talking about politics. The tweet itself is not political, but the tweet is very emotional, and the conflict between them is very public and very emotional. And your contrast, and you seem to be suggesting that because of the nature of social media, something about the structure or the nature of social media made this more emotional, and you're using emotional here in a negative sense, where if it was less emotional, maybe the issue would have been resolved better?
Yeah, and I think it also doesn't help that both Flavor Flav and Chuck D are seeing thousands and thousands of comments. You know what I mean? Like if this was me and I
which is like hyping them up on both sides.
Like
and
theoretically, let's
more.
say you and I are in a duo and we have this fight.
Let's say that.
Okay. And like I'm scrolling through and you kicked me out of our group because I did that shit.
And now you're gonna release a battle.
Right, and now I'm gonna get the diss track and everything. Get the new group going. But what I'm saying, I think, is it's so emotionally fueled.
Lil Nicky and Flavor Flav against Chuck D and Professor D. I can see it now. Okay, go on.
I think it doesn't help that there's thousands of outside perspectives that don't even understand the issue commenting. So it's like if your fans were like,
yeah,
you fuck Lil Nicky, whatever my rap name is, you know. And then me seeing that is
probably
gonna
would say that.
Right, exactly. Then that's probably what they're saying about Flavor Flav. But
I think you would have a good number of fans in this class, though.
Thank you. Maybe we'll see.
I think I would win.
Yeah, you
but it
would
wouldn't
win.
be like that.
It'd be close. It'd be close.
Yeah, like 70-30.
Yeah. But I think I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this being on the platform it is, in the way that these statements are communicated.
I get that. So what is it about the platform? So part of it is like the hyper publicity of it. It's so public, and there's so many people's voices that can be in there.
Yeah.
But this is what I want to ask. You seem to be, and I want to push everybody to think about this, is that there still seems to be the overall belief that this is outside the realm of politics, that this is not political, right? Whereas, the way I would see it, your critique of social media and the way in which conflict between different parties, as you know, the definition that Chelsea alluded to there, Chelsea, right? The conflict between parties over power, right? What you're saying is that conflict is more antagonistic and less likely to be resolved because of the nature of social media. So if that's your thesis, I hear that as saying there's something, you're making a claim about the politics of social media, right? Because the structure of social media is such that it increases antagonism between parties. It promotes antagonism between parties who are struggling over power rather than promoting consensus and resolution.
Yeah, and I think it's misused in the sense of one of the key just philosophies of this class as far as opening up those conversations that we don't have, and it should be easier with social media to have those conversations, but it's never been harder.
Okay, now that's an interesting thesis right there.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that social media in and of itself is something that makes struggles over differences of opinion, makes it more antagonistic, as opposed to makes it easier for us to, get our opinions out there and have a multiplicity of opinions and be more democratic and have more people sort of come together? You guys agree with that? And then if so, what is it about social media? Why would social media in and of itself be something that causes us to be more antagonistic than we would otherwise be?
So I feel like when social media is involved, for example, I was checking Flavor Flav's Twitter.
This is Wyatt, everybody. He's spoken here a few times. You guys should know him by now.
What?
What? I was not Wyatt. I don't know.
I don't think you've ever asked my name, actually.
That's so weird. But we had some jokes and I apologize, bro. Listen, sometimes I fuck up. I forget to ask people their names. What's your name?
I'm Ryan.
Ryan. I definitely didn't ask Ryan his name. Is there a Wyatt in this class? Oh, man. Look, I told you guys I'm old. So, whatever. I apologize, Ryan. You were saying.
Anyways, the nature of social media and I was checking Twitter and he's got some comments about how because they're going to defend him and his decisions. And
him who?
Flavor Flav, sorry.
Okay.
And the thing about that is when you get a following behind you, you start to validate yourself then.
Yes.
And you think less about your own shortcomings in the situation and just think about how you're right and the other guy's wrong. And the more people you get to back you,
which are yes men. Which are yes men, right?
The more it is to just butting heads and no chance of resolution whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Ryan. I apologize for not remembering your name. Yeah, so totally to your point. So, and that's what happened with Kanye, right? So social media, so you guys have heard these critiques before. Social media creates what? Echo chambers, right? So it feels like we have more access to more information, but somehow we end up in situations where we're just in these communities of everybody who thinks the same as us, and then we get this sort of us versus them. Whoever's on that other side, clearly they don't know the truth, right? Clearly they're all idiots. All the people who are voting for the other party, right? And this is an issue, I think, what you guys are connecting for me in my mind is this is really the problem with celebrity, right? Because the more, long before, let me finish this point, John. It's John, right? Yeah. Okay. Guys, if I get anybody's name, please correct me. Get anybody's name wrong. The issue of celebrity. People can be really smart, really talented, and then they become famous, and then they start acting crazy. And it's because they're surrounded by these yes people, right? They're surrounded by these, status seekers who just do nothing but just they spiral. And then you get Kanye with his Make America Great Again hat. It was terrible. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to add on top of that, a lot of what social media does is it kind of through your feed, the social media websites and platforms make you see more of what you've been liking, and they don't necessarily get you to see the other side because you may disagree with it, and that's just kind of a business format, and in turn it kind of.
Did you say a business format?
Well, as from a social media like website perspective, because you want your like people to be happy, so in turn you give them a bunch of stuff you know they like, and in addition to that, like in doing so, people become more polarized and they don't tend to look at the other side or look across the aisle, and they tend, in addition to that, like, moreover, social media is a very, you can tweet out something with a lot of ease. You don't necessarily need a lot of evidence to do so. You can just see something you don't like, whether it's from a verified source or not, and then react to it.
Yeah.
And because of that, like, click, attention, reaction, it's further polarizes both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. And now we tend to, when we're talking about antagonism, we are.
Professor, can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
So in addition to those echo chambers, I mean, on TV, the like televising the Congress sessions also kind of created this intense partisanship for a lot of people, because in the past nobody knew what was happening, so there wasn't like as much intense partisanship as now. And that's what like a lot of
which happened when? When did they start televising?
I think by the 1970s or something like that, they started like having that CCP live thing all the time. So that kind of exposure led some people to have their echo chambers away from social media. So that's also something that we don't talk about a lot.
Okay, so now let me challenge you. Let me pick on you. Pick on somebody my own size, so to speak. Here's how I would. Here's one way to hear what you said as an add-on to the social media thing. So, not only is social media it's like more people have access to spout their opinions, however much it's grounded in fact or not, have the ability, more people are able to share with more people their own opinions. And as a result, we have more antagonism and more strife in the country or in the world. And you're saying not only is that true of social media, but you're saying that goes back to when politics went from being substantially behind closed doors to more public. So are you actually saying that the more voices that are involved, the more democratic things become, the worse things get? Are you then suggesting that politics should all just be done behind closed doors by the elites?
Not necessarily. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just describing what led to this point, like among other things. So it's just like, one among other many things that led to this high, division in politics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like in the 70s, like Republicans and Democrats were not like so much apart in terms of politics. Like, but
also in terms of racism, they weren't.
Yes.
So, so I'm just trying to understand, like, why isn't it, like, I'm going to assume, let's say everybody here, let me know if I'm wrong, everybody here believes in democracy.
Yeah, that's like one of the side effects of the democratization of politics.
Okay,
for the
one
people.
of the side effects of the democratization of politics is that we have what? More echo chambers, more antagonism?
In a way.
But then isn't that good?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's good.
It could be good, it could be bad. I mean, depending on.
Okay, talking to Mike.
Yeah, it could be good or bad depending on what perspective you're holding.
Well, I'm asking you on your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a mix. It depends on the situation.
Are you suggesting that some situations we're better off with a totalitarian government than a democratic government.
No, I'm saying like the Congress, when they go behind closed doors, they don't reveal anything to the public.
And sometimes that's necessary.
And sometimes that's necessary for national security or whatever.
Ashton agrees.
Yeah.
Right? Ashton? You agree? No? I think most people in the room would agree. It would be it'd be like a radically democratic perspective to say that under no circumstances is it legitimate for Congress or the Senate or the government to make decisions behind closed doors. I think most people in the room would agree that there are some, even for a democracy, right, where the majority of decisions, we want the public to be aware of it. And if the public is not aware of the reasons and the ways the majority of decisions are being made, then it's not a democracy. But at the same time, I think most people would agree. And again, please tell me if let me know who disagrees. There are certain things where people who have been elected, who have been given authority, their job is to keep citizens protected. And that involves having national secrets, having state secrets. Right? Does everybody think that that's legitimate? Put your hand up if you think that any degree of state secrecy against the public is actually is fundamentally contrary to democracy. So we got a radical in the house. Okay. Okay, Doug. Anybody else? I thought you were the radical. No, the state has to have some secrets. Okay. Okay. Do you want to comment on it? You don't have to, but do you have something to say? Okay. Let's hear. This is a very.
To the front.
I don't mind getting a little exercise, Wow. How could you possibly say that no state secrets are legitimate?
Well, I guess we have a lot of people who want to execute Snowden in this room, but
damn, son.
But state secrets never really contribute to anything worthwhile. When you think about it, you think, oh well, since 9/11 happened,
wait, does
the
everybody
government
know
knew about 9/11.
Does everybody know who Edward Snowden is?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody probably people who don't know would not put their hand up. You guys should Google Edward Snowden so that you know who we're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, basically stuff like that. If the government can keep secrets from you, they will usually exploit you in a way that you don't know about, as the American government does currently with secret search warrants to look at all of your internet records, which they can do. That's what Snowden told everyone.
Damn, son. That's a good point. Okay, Murph has a response.
I don't think it necessarily goes against democracy, because the definition of democracy is just that people are eligible to vote in decisions that affect the country, not necessarily that people are allowed to know everything. So I think there's a difference in between, because Greece tried direct democracy where everyone, white landowning males could vote in every single election, but that didn't mean that they would
Wait, when was this?
In, 100 BC.
Prehistoric times?
Yes. But
I know about 300 BC.
Something like that. I don't know the exact year. It's a little rough, but...
That was a movie joke.
Oh, yeah.
Go on.
It was saying just because the democracy just means that people are allowed to vote in elections that affect them, not necessarily that they're given the information to vote, have an informed vote.
I think Doug has a response. Doug, the resolution on the table is that the definition of democracy is as follows. Everybody knows. The definition of democracy is simply that citizens have the right to vote in elections that affect them, not necessarily that they have access to all the decision that then the leaders they elect have access to. That's the definition of democracy, going all the way back to prehistoric times in Greece. How can you argue with that?
Well, number one, we're not in a pure democracy right now. It's a representative democracy, and even then it's a little iffy because, I mean, Bernie Sanders was, like, the nomination was stolen from him in 2016 because of delegates, and the Iowa caucus, nobody even knows what that is. They stand in four corners of the room to choose who they want to become president in 2020. That's crazy. But
why is that crazy? Does that not go back to prehistoric Greece, or does that go actually back to colonial times?
I think that goes back to colonial times.
Oh, it's a colonial law that still exists. Okay.
And everybody says that you should be an informed voter. You can't be an informed voter if the government is holding secrets from you. Period.
Murph, what do you have to say about that? Oh, we got another hand up. I was going to say that. Wait, hold on a sec. Exactly, Paul.
I was gonna say for the informed voter, like at least how I've always considered that is like you should be informed on what that specific person or that group like stands for, which you don't necessarily have to know like whether,
state secrets.
Yeah, you don't have to know whether or not the U.S. is gonna bomb some general again, right? Like that's kind of irrelevant.
Wait, does the U.S. bomb generals?
Yeah. So, like, for me, it was more about
that's
like that,
crazy talk. What kind of conspiracy theory are you trying to?
YouTube is an interesting place.
Touche. Social media.
Yeah.
Antagonism. Echo chamber. Go on.
So yeah, I guess like that point of being an informed voter means you have to know state secrets seems kind of irrelevant to me, or like it doesn't really make sense to me because I just feel like you have to be informed on what individuals or parties or groups' stances are on specific issues.
Okay.
And one of those issues could theoretically be like whether or not state secrets should be secrets or they should be public information.
Now, are you going to have this guy in your group when you battle me? Because he's got a good voice. He could be like, he's got that deep, you know, it's not really appropriate to know all the state secrets. We're going to bomb the Shah. It's crazy talk.
Yeah, so
you guys with your radical direct democracy. So hold on, let's point this one thing out. So Murph, you mentioned the definition of democracy, and you gave a definition. I hope everybody wrote down Murph's definition. When Murph gave this definition of democracy, which will be on the exam, thanks Murph. He initially stated it as if you stated it in a singular way. You said, the definition of democracy is. And then Doug mentioned, well, this is not even a unqualified democracy, this is a representative democracy. And that might have been after you mentioned direct democracy. So now we got to the point where we're recognizing there are different versions of democracy. There's different definitions of democracy, there's different versions of democracy. So just like the way you define politics makes a statement that uses the word politics or doesn't, it makes it coherent or not, or it makes it qualify as politics or not. Same is true of democracy, right? How you define democracy makes a big difference in terms of any discussion that we're going to have about democracy. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I originally didn't put my hand up, because I think the question was, to have a democracy, can the state have secrets? Was that the original, what started this whole thing?
I don't know. What was the question that you asked that started this whole problem?
I mean, what I added to the discussion is that...
No, I was making, this is a joke. I said, what was the question that you asked that he is responding to? Here's the question. I said, if, it wasn't you, it was me. That was a joke. That was a joke. Is it the case that, basically the argument that I was making, Murph, is a direct democracy argument, right? If you're going to say yes to the question that I posed, which is, I said, is it the case that you can coherently call a political system a democracy if there are state secrets? If there are things that, if the government makes some decisions behind closed doors, and who decides what decisions those are, this is Douglas's point, and who decides what decisions those are which ones are appropriate to happen behind closed doors, and how to make the determinations that are made behind closed doors, if that is done by politicians themselves without the public having access to that information, then you don't have a democracy. That's the argument from the perspective of direct democracy.
Right, and I think that it could be argued that anything that has a state is, like, you can't have a direct democracy with a statist system of governance because there at some point is some secrecy held from the public.
You agree? Did you just say yeah? I'm just saying you say yeah.
No, I mean, you gotta understand from like where I'm coming from, because I lived under a dictatorship for like 27 years.
Okay.
So we never had anything televised like you do here in the United States.
Yeah.
So that kind of iron fist governorship was like effective in keeping the order.
Yeah.
And keeping people ignorant about politics, mostly. So we never had any informed citizens or voters or anything. So that you see what I'm saying.
No, you're actually it's more confusing because it's coming off of Nick, Nick seemed to be saying that social media itself, there's something about the structure of social media, there's something about the inherent politics, and when I say inherent, I mean that there is a politics to the structure of social media that is independent of the politics of the people who are using social media, right? So social media itself, one second, I'll come to you. Social media itself structures our discussions, structures our discourses, structures our contestations over power, our differences of opinion, in such a way that it generates more antagonism than cooperation. It generates more misunderstanding than understanding. This is what I was interpreting from Nick. Is that Nick gave me let the record state. Professor D made a statement. Everybody, there was a standing ovation. I got that from Parks and Rec. Jam. You guys know Jam, the politician Jam? So, and then you said, yeah, and then an earlier technological development making political decisions or contestations over power more public, an earlier development across the world, actually, right, that happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, depending on what country you're in, is the media technology development of television, which sent so much more information to so many more people, right? So when you added that on, based on what Nick was saying, it sounded to me like you're saying, yeah, things become more disorderly, right? So to your point, it was more orderly before. But things become more disorderly and also more divided. So it sounded like you were saying there was something negative about that, but maybe you weren't saying there was something negative about it. Maybe you're saying, maybe that's good. Maybe it's like, you know, the more plurality of opinions there are, the more democratic a world we live in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
But that's not what Nick is saying, though. Nick is saying that we feel that way. We think that social media is allowing us to express our opinions and giving us more access to more differences of opinions, but that's an illusion. Who else was saying that? Was it, I don't know if it was Paul or somebody else up there. John. Yeah, John was saying, what was your point? What? Yeah. Yeah. So it entrenches you in your own ideology, while giving you the illusion that more people ascribe to your ideology than actually do. So you think that, you know, everybody in America thinks that Trump is an idiot, except for these three people that I'm arguing with on social media, right? But then if you're in the other social media bubble, everybody knows all these Democrats are idiots, and Trump is the one who is going to make America great again, and all this news is fake. And it's only these, you know, these libtards over here that I'm arguing with who like don't know the obvious facts, right? So it creates this illusion, right? So social media is the real fake news. How about that? How you like them apples? Go ahead.
Well, I guess jumping back a fair bit, I guess my main thing was that, like the question of, you know, if direct democracy is compatible with a state that doesn't keep secrets, kind of feels malformed, because I think the two are incompatible. At least if you're looking at their, I guess it depends on the definition that you're using, and I think the assumed definition doesn't reflect reality.
The definition of what?
The definition of democracy and a state.
I understand. So you introduced this question of the state, and you said that you can't have a fully realize democracy so long as we are in a state system, a nation-state system. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but in order for the rest of us, in order for anybody to evaluate what they think of the truth value of that statement, what do you need? You need a definition of democracy, which we've been talking about. You may need a definition of politics, which we've been talking about. And then you also need a definition of the state, which we haven't talked about yet, right? So many people in the room here who didn't tune out a long time ago will tune out at this point, because it's like, okay, well, every place that we go to, you're going to pull up top hat right here? Every place that we go to, where we get in the conversation, brings up this other question of like, well, what definition do you need? And what's the definition there? And then if it's possible to contest every definition, then how can you ever evaluate a truth value for any statement? That's, I think, where people are going to get confused. But I hope they get it together by next week, because these are the types of questions that you're going to have on this exam. You're going to have to be able to evaluate different definitions. So I might give you this. I might give you that exact tweet, or a tweet just like it. And then I'll say, here are 3 definitions of politics. And maybe I'll give them to you, or maybe I'll say Professor D's definition and the one Chelsea mentioned and the one from Google. And then I'll say, which of the following is true? Or under which definition is Flavor Flav's tweet political? That could be the question. So you have to pick which definition makes it political, or which definition makes it not political. Right? Or we could do the same with democracy or race. Or we could say race versus ethnicity, which I didn't give you any slides on today, but I actually have them in your top hat questions, so you'll be able to see them anyway. Let's start the question. Thanks.